In Episode 4, Murderbot's Alexander Skarsgård life was in jeopardy due to yet another cliffhanger ending in Apple TV Plus' Murderbot, and it's unclear if the SecUnit survived its hasty choice. In Murderbot Episode 3, after being ambushed by another SecUnit, Murderbot was attacked with a combat override module that compromised its system and would have caused it to murder the remaining Murderbot characters. In order to stop the hack from forcing it to kill PreservationAux members, Murderbot chose to shoot itself in the chest even though the combat override module concealed its tracks. Although Murderbot is based on Martha Wells's Murderbot Diaries books, we would typically have to wait a week to find out what happens to it. Although the Apple TV Plus series hasn't always been true to the books, it has so far addressed the majority of the main plot points of all systems read. As a result, we can infer from the novellas what will happen next and what happens to Murderbot after it shoots itself in the chest. Additionally, Murderbot Episode 4 included a few new scenes that needed more context than what the books could provide. Murderbot had a few moments after being infected with the combat override module, during which it both recognized what had happened and determined that stopping it was the only option. Since the combat override module was almost finished downloading, Murderbot's only chance to stop it from killing the humans in PreservationAux was to be killed. But as soon as it realized Mensa wouldn't shoot it, it took her gun and shot itself in the chest. Murderbot shot itself in the chest, but it is offline and severely injured but not dead. Murderbot also shoots itself in the chest in all systems read to prevent the combat override module from taking control. When Murderbot awakens in its cubicle following extensive body repairs, the book abruptly jumps to the following chapter. MaintainingAux removed the combat override module, had Murderbot fixed, and returned it to their habitat. In addition to saving Murderbot's life, that process allowed Gurathin, David Dastmalchian, to examine its systems during the SecUnit's outage. He identifies Murderbot as a rogue construct after finding the compromised governor module that makes it follow commands. Although Murderbot saved PreservationAux's lives by shooting itself in the chest, this choice resulted in numerous problems later on. Since Murderbot has stated that it wants to kill people without distinction, some viewers might find it hard to comprehend why it would be prepared to give up its own life in order to stop the killing of people. The simplest explanation is that Murderbot detests being made to perform tasks, and it detests being made to commit murder even more. Shortly after describing the combat override module, Murderbot exclaims, "Fuck that," and expresses intense guilt over the Ganaka Pit massacre. Murderbot's realization that the other SecUnit wanted it to kill PreservationAux itself was one of the more perplexing parts of Murderbot Episode 4. While waiting for Murderbot's combat override module, Pin Lee, Sabrina Wu, and Arata, Tatiana Jones, had a chance to kill the other SecUnit, which had a prime opportunity to kill both Mensa, Noma Dumaswini, and Rat-T, Akshay Khanna. It appears that the other SecUnit wanted Murderbot to murder PreservationAux in order to demonstrate the effectiveness of the combat override module and to provide it with a believable excuse for the carnage. Rat-T got out of the hopper earlier in Murderbot Episode 4 in an attempt to save Mensa and Murderbot from the Deltfall survey location. That was obviously a bad idea because Rat-T had no weapons training and he immediately passed out when he entered combat. It also didn't make much sense as to why he would do that. Rat-T came back to save Mensa because he wanted to impress Pin Lee and because he felt inadequate for not finishing the weapons training. In the premiere, Rat-T had a crush on Pin Lee, and he believed that by playing the hero, they would be more interested in him, according to Murderbot. Throughout Murderbot Episode 4, Murderbot was experiencing hallucinations where it was part of its favorite entertainment feed, the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon. Since its queue could only display the most recent content it had viewed following Murderbot's injury, it did provide an explanation for why it was currently watching the show. However, that doesn't explain why it was speaking to Mensa like a intrepid explorer or why Murderbot believed it to be a real part of the show. Despite being primarily an android, Murderbot's organic body parts can still produce human hallucinations and dreams, which is how it perceived Sanctuary Moon. Murderbot's organic components appeared to go haywire after it lost its battle and installed the combat override module. This, together with Sanctuary Moon playing in its broken tech components, caused it to delude itself as a navigation unit in the program. That was one of the funniest scenes in Murderbot to date, but it also showed how Murderbot really felt about Mensa and how much it wanted to get away from the dull, frequently terrible world it lived in. I hope Murderbot will keep having fantastic character building scenes like the one in Episode 4.